Hey guys, welcome to another OrmsTV video. Today we've got a really exciting challenge that Matt has given us. Now the budget is 25,000 Rand and we've got various aspects of photography, and the idea is what is the best camera kit that you can get for the budget?
Yeah, now just to clarify this for our guys who are not in South Africa, 25,000 Rand is about 1,800 US dollars. So it's very much what you would consider a maybe not completely entry level kit, but kind of where you'd want to start if you want to get into a little bit more serious photography. So each of us had a genre, effectively, and we had to put together a little kit for what we would like to shoot and what we would buy. If that was our budget and that's all we had to make it work.
So for this challenge, I went with fashion photography, and from the very beginning when I started shooting with cameras, I've always shot on Canon. So for this challenge, it was only natural that I chose an EOS RP. It is the only full frame mirrorless at its price range, and I went with a nifty 50 to go with it. From the very moment I started shooting, I got a 50mm as my first lens. It is super sharp and super affordable for beginners as well. And if you're shooting fashion photography, you never know if a client's going to blow up an image. So you want to make sure that when you're zooming into eyes, anything like that, that everything is super sharp.
As you guys can see, I've got the biggest lens out of all three here, and my subject was action photography. Now, the first thing that came to my mind for action was obviously something with really good tracking and speed. Now, the Canon R10, which is very, very new on the market, is probably the best in that sort of price range. And setting that up with a second-hand RF 600mm f11.
So I've always been into street photography, and therefore that's what I chose for my little challenge. And I went with probably the only real option that you can go for. I went for a Fujifilm setup. So what I've got here is the Fujifilm X-E4 coupled with a Fuji XF 23mm f2 lens. And put quite simply, it looks pretty good, okay? And it's small, it's tiny, it's easily concealable, and it's not obtrusive. Kind of perfect for street photography.
So with the budget that we were given with this little setup, I managed to stay well under, and I could also afford a reflector on top of it, which for fashion photography is definitely an essential. It has completely helped me manipulate my light the way I need it, when the light's not working with me, where I need a bit of extra because there's harsh shadows on my subject.
Since you're talking about budget,
Yeah.
I also came in well under. I think I'm sitting at about 21,000 Rand on this setup, which is what, like $1,400 in that kind of vicinity. But crucially,
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting some evil eyes here, but unfortunately, doing action or sport or wildlife, the lenses are generally a little bit more expensive, unfortunately. So I went a little bit over budget, even though the 600 f11 I've got here was a second-hand one.
but I mean, look, at the end of the day, though, you got stunning images, though.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably go into a little more in depth. The biggest reason I went for this little setup, to be honest, the R10's tracking is phenomenal. It is crazy good. It has the bird tracking mode or animal tracking mode. So just pointing this into any bird's direction, as Matt will probably show some images, it just keeps the autofocus solidly either on the body or the face of the bird. And this camera can shoot 15 frames per second mechanical, 23 frames in electronic, which is all I needed. We mostly shot on electronic mode because with mechanical shutter, the viewfinder blacks out.
Okay.
So unfortunately, when you're tracking the bird with a fixed 600mm that blacks out, it's really difficult to see kind of where the bird is going. So that's kind of a nice tip. Switch to electronic mode and you can completely see the bird's position.
It is a little bit crazy that a camera giving you that type of autofocus and burst performance is now at what is essentially a entry-level price point. It is absolutely crazy what that thing can do.
Now, in terms of tracking, we've obviously spoken about the bird tracking. I think for portrait work, obviously the RP is perfect for that as well. And having the full frame with eye detection probably helped you with your autofocus.
Definitely. I always try and keep my focus definitely on the face, especially as I zoomed into the images and I went into a bit of more detail when I was looking back at them, and it really picked up the subject quite nicely.
Yeah. The same on the XE4, if I remember right.
Yeah, so autofocus almost irrelevant for street photography. So I generally just shoot center spot. So quick focus, recomposition, shoot, you know. And I kind of the way that I like to shoot is just walk, you know, see something, shoot, carry on. So sometimes you miss it, sometimes you nail it, but it kind of works for my style because I don't usually shoot with something with autofocus. So it's just a little bit more natural to just kind of keep moving and keep shooting. But that one thing that Fuji always does really well is get their color science absolutely perfect. And I really appreciate that because I don't like editing. I really can't stand editing. So to have beautifully clean black and white straight from camera, to have easily manipulatable colors and color science right in the camera is great. I really appreciate that. And a little setup like this. So your 23mm lens, because it's a crop sensor, you're effectively shooting at a 35mm, which is about perfect for that street photography angle, a very natural look, no real distortion in it, anything like that. And it looks like kind of like a film camera.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll see in some of the pictures that Matt will be showing on the screen, you can be very inconspicuous with a setup like this, and people don't really notice you around, and it becomes very easy to just walk past, take a quick snap, carry on, and yeah, because of the way that this sensor performs, it just nails it. It's beautiful. I love this thing. My like sort of thinking about it is very similar to what you have over here with the prime lens. It forces you to learn composition, and it forces you to not rely on zooming in and out and that kind of thing. And that's a great thing to learn when you're starting out in photography. And except for you, who had to go there because of budget, I think over here that's kind of what we were thinking. You know, you wanna be able to learn. You wanna get into photography a bit more seriously.
Well, personally, sorry to interrupt you, but personally, when I started shooting, this was my first lens. But as I've grown as a digital photographer a bit, I've much preferred moving to zoom lenses, just because I just find it a lot easier to work with a subject.
Of course.
Also it gets my shots sometimes a bit quicker when I need to. I much prefer zoom nowadays. Going back to color, one thing I've always felt with Canon, and that's why I haven't switched, is because I feel like what I see is what I get the moment I transfer it onto my laptop. And you said that you don't really enjoy editing, but personally, I love enhancing what Canon already gives me in the photos. And that's what I really enjoyed with this camera as well, is what I saw with the natural light behind or anything like that. I could just enhance it, and I could just work with it very easily because the colors just come together perfectly.
And since you came in well under budget, you could have some Lightroom. Yeah, Andre's editing in Paint.
Yeah. Something to note though, maybe going to the lenses. I mean, you shooting on f1.8, you're shooting on f2, and this is a 600 f11. Now, a lot of clients, when they look at the 600 f11, they think like, oh, why is the aperture so high? And I mean, yeah, ideally in a perfect world, you want a lower aperture. The biggest thing that people are scared about this lens is the background defocus. Now, when we went out shooting birds, a lot of people obviously do want the background like super soft. There's a really nice image. I don't know what the bird is called, but he was sitting on a reed and the background is completely soft. So even at f11, you can still ensure with a 600mm that you will get nice soft background. But the key is to move closer to the subject. Because the further you are away from the subject, the more visible the background is going to become.
Personally, when I do shoot fashion, I always find myself trying to stick to a lower aperture.
You do need for fashion and portraiture the lower f number for sure.
Personally, I've always stayed there. I think you can make it work with an f4 or something like that, but genuinely, you're going to want to get a lower aperture lens when shooting something like fashion, I think. What about street photography?
Yeah, very similar. So, I mean, on something like this, I pretty much stick it onto f2. And that's where I stay. Because what you usually find, and I think that's probably kind of similar to what you shoot, is that your backgrounds can be quite busy and quite noisy, if I can put it that way. And having that aperture just creates that little bit of separation, which just kind of makes your subject pop a little bit, that's great. Yeah.
So I don't know about you guys, but personally, if I had a bit more of a budget, I would probably upgrade to either a 24 to 70 or a 70 to 200. In one of the last videos we made, we were kind of comparing bodies and lenses, and I definitely found that the lens makes a world of a difference. So if I could make an upgrade at this point, it would be a lens first of all. What about you?
I would probably do exactly the same thing. I'm quite happy with the little camera. So if I had a little bit more budget, I'd probably go to like a 23mm 1.4. Fuji also do a really nice, I think it's like a 56mm lens as well, like really, really nice, very shallow depth of field. I might go there.
Yeah, I think I'll go the same route. The first thing I'll upgrade is probably to an RF 100 to 500. That is L series. You can even put converters on there as well. So that'll be like a really prime lens to attach to this body. That'll be it for this video, guys. We really hope you guys enjoyed it, and let us know in the comments below what you would buy in the 25,000 Rand budget. And this also perfectly shows you what is possible, right?
Definitely like and subscribe.
Until next time.